Let's talk a little bit of data from Matt Piscatella, where he's pretty much pointing out a reality in the gaming industry right now. This is how you know that gaming is, basically reaching a point where it's being turned over. I wouldn't say gaming is dying. I wouldn't say, console is dying. No. I'm not going to draw those conclusions because there's no metric to follow that. However, there's a shift that's going on and a turning as well. At first, we all said, oh, it's a shift. It's a shift. Now it's not just a shift, it's a turning. Matt Piscatella posts on his Blue Sky page on February 25th. This is when he posted this stuff. Very interesting in the evening. He said over 70% of U.S. active PlayStation 5, Xbox Series players played at least one of the top 10 live service games of the month during January. More than 40% of all time spent playing on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series in the US during January went to those same top 10 live service games. I just finished making a video where an audience member was telling me that PC is not the end all and be all and blah, 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 blah. Yet the metrics are just showing that PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series players are fixated on a specific kind of game for the majority of playtimes. 40% in the top 10. This is not considering that there are still more live service games in the bottom 5, in the top 15 that Matt Piscatella usually posts, nor other live service games that exist even lower down the rung and the ladder. Do you understand what I mean? Like, if you were to put those games into that mix, it would be way more depressing to think about it. He continues in a thread and says, the total U.S. game market spending peaked in 2021. Although the market has stayed closed since, total players and hours also peaked in that period. The pace of games released hasn't slowed. Do y'all remember that I always bring the Steam releases to show you guys what I think is a representation of the growth? Some people were chiming in and saying, well, these games are so and so. These games don't exist on console and all that. And I'm like, guys, I think we're missing the forest in this whole conversation. This is not to say that console is seeing such release cycle because it's a lot less frequent on the console space. However, because now many of these games also make their way to console, the release cap has been blown off and more games appear every single month. This is the kind of thing that takes away player time. Remember, Hoyoverse just brought Genshin Impact to Xbox. That already would have sucked out some more time from any single player game that's out there. He said total players and hours have peaked in that period, and the pace many games being released on isn't slowed. Mobile was the biggest and fastest growing content segment in the United States in 2024. It ain't easy. Really could use some positive surprises this year and for a bunch of things to go right in 2025. So a lot is riding on the new products coming to the market this year to hopefully combat or reverse some of these trends. I only think these trends are going to be temporary. Used to be that players would jump from big game to some new other game, but they were most often to moving to something new that they purchased. Now, the live service games suck out a ton of available time, and it's hard to beat free if it's good. So here we are. Here's another thing, Matt, and I know Matt is picking this from a perspective of having seen the data and seen the player behavior, but what is the motivation that is driving a lot of this player behavior? It's a community-based system. The fact that you can jump into an ecosystem and game with your friends and game with your associates and game with people that you resonate with, that is a very huge pool in this particular conversation. I mean, think about, there are lone wolves out there who would go into team death matches, who would jump into, lobbies and jump into, all kinds of stuff. But they're the folk who are basically playing these games with and because of their friends. It is not without, any acknowledgement to this that we're going to move forward with this conversation. This is what Tim Sweeney was talking about. We're making these games that players like to play based on community-based gaming. And I think this is definitely something that a lot of games could probably see in terms of making progress. They'd have to improve their expertise, but they can see some great gains if they have something on the tail end of their titles that would unite their players together. It doesn't have to be forced. In many cases, it just has to be organic. And I think this is probably what a lot of games are missing in the market. Not going to talk too much about that because there are all kinds of different, directions we could go. Let's stick with what he's saying on his thread. And so when you think about what people are saying here, this person said, also, I jump more often from game to game during previous generations when the price ranged from 30 to 60 and the games offered 8 to 20 hours experience. It's hard to jump from game to game when they're all offering 40 hours per game. I'm not complaining though, but it helps, but it doesn't help their sales. This Arizona Joe writes and says, when it's time played, but it's taking money away from other products. While it's time played, he said, but is it taking money away from other products? Arizona Joe, what are you talking about, son? Many people playing free to play aren't paying a dime to play it and maybe spending that money on other games. Would need more data, but I feel time played doesn't hurt games where a healthy user base is a requirement. This person said, I would agree, yes, if only because the number of games available has increased, while the number of hours in the day has stayed the same. And once people stick to a game, it's hard to unstick them. I think this is a perspective that some people have held. I've seen this actually, show up on the channel before. And ladies and gentlemen, believe you me, time spent and money spent, there may not be, say, a direct proportionality, at least an inverse proportionality affects the single player game where money is not spent on, yet time is spent on a free to play or a live service game. Because again, what that question failed to realize is some of those games in the top 15 games or top 10 live service games are actually paid games. Yes, just because, you have some of the people playing the free to play doesn't mean that some did not buy their copy of the Call of Duty Black Ops 6, does not mean that some people did not buy their copy of NBA 2K, does not mean that some people did not buy their WWE, which is actually one of those games that appears on that list quite frequently. No, it doesn't mean that people did not buy their copy of Madden 25. So think again, ladies and gentlemen, that there are some of these games that are free, some of the platforms that are free, but there are also some that you pay for. And it's the fact that there's both the paid for and the free that's even, in my opinion, exacerbating the issue more than anything else. If, say, it was just maybe the free, okay, no problem. But then you got the ones that people like. And then you got the ones that if you look, say maybe you go down the list and you find a game like Helldivers 2, that had a $30 entry fee. Even at that particular budget, the game still required that you spend a little bit of $30 on it. So when it's all said and done, I really have to go ahead and say, this gaming industry is not here to play around with all of the figment of our imagination that we basically cooked up. Because for the most part, it's all been said in podcasts where folk have been sitting in front of a microphone. I sit in front of a microphone and have been basically spewing what they felt the industry was doing when the industry was pretty much transforming from the inside out. Everything was being turned upside down. And now here we are, where you're looking at your favorite single player game. And if you're paying very close attention, you're hoping that it would be able to break into the market and sell. Because another thing too is, and people may or may not acknowledge this, but there's also the social side of gaming. That social side that the live service games have been able to use to connect and be able to pull players away is also there in terms of the shared view of video games. People look at a video game and they look at the people that play the video game ahead of them or the people that are playing the video game that they think they're playing alongside, which is AKA the influencers, the YouTubers and the streamers. And they look at the reactions of those games. And if those games from those people and the reactions don't resonate with them, many of them aren't going to play that game. Think about Forspoken. Forspoken was one of those games. Once some people said, this game is cringy or whatever, that already affected the psyche of a lot of people. They didn't touch the game. They were like, nah, man, we're not going to touch this game. And that particular mentality is also a reality here. Believe you me, some people say something about a video game and they have a bunch of people that have money waiting to buy the game and they say something about the game that they think is negative. It could be anything. It could just be, I just don't like the color of the grass. And some other people are like, you know what? Yeah, my $60 doesn't like the color of that grass too. Yeah, I see it. It just could be anything that would make players resonate this way. And so video games right now in a very weird place. So once again, I think we really need to take a very close look at what the video game industry is doing. And hopefully that, more and more technology pieces will show up that would enable the smaller studios to be able to get games out as fast as possible and exercise creativity that the AAA companies right now are not interested in exercising. Just my 2 cents on the issue. Thanks for watching the video. Appreciate y'all so much. Peace out.